Thanks for joining me here at Kalkine Media. Let's discuss how COVID expenses are treated in relation to the taxes paid by Australians. First, take a look at the tax-deductible expenses related to COVID-19. The Australian government has made COVID expenses tax-deductible if purchased for work-related purposes. In fact, the measures announced by the Australian government are probably already in place. The general deduction provisions allow individuals to be qualified for a tax deduction on expenditures made under mandatory work-related guidelines. For instance, those getting an RAT test or RAT test done simply to show up in their office can avail of the tax deduction on the amount for the test. The guidelines do not cover transport expenses made to reach the RAT or PCR test sites. These expenses are considered personal expenditures, even if the test is a mandate required by one's employer or company. However, costs incurred during a mandatory quarantine are tax deductible. This is essential for those employees who had to take work trips when the spread of infections was high. Alternatively, quarantine expenses incurred on trips taken for personal reasons are not tax deductible. Tax deduction on quarantine expenses is also not eligible for those fly-in employees, while as fly-out employees who travel to a regular work site without being under the supervision of their employers. Additionally, those travelling overseas or across states also need to present a negative certificate covered under the existing guidelines. On the contrary, RAT kits purchased for personal reasons are not eligible for a tax deduction. The private reasons include the self-examination of the virus for travel and convenience, or the unavailability of PCR testing. Wondering how to claim these benefits? The most important step required to claim these benefits is having all the receipts and bills saved beforehand. These bills will be crucial in providing the expenses made by individuals while getting the tax return prepared. Additional proof would need to suggest that the test was needed for work-related reasons and not for personal purposes. The Australian Taxation Office has recommended that individuals should keep a record of all their COVID-related expenses. This includes details of the supplier, the amount of the expense, and the payment date. Most importantly, the legislation will be backdated to apply for the 2021 to 22 income year. The expenses made by employers are also tax deductible, but only for the employer under the category of a business expense. This business expense includes the necessary steps to bring the workforce back into the business without compromising their safety. Earlier, reimbursement given to employees for the tests they purchased on their own were included in expenses covered under the fringe benefits tax. Under this, a tax is imposed on the additional benefits received by employees apart from their wages. However, the government has stated that such expenses would be exempted from fringe benefits tax from July 1, 2021. Both PCR and RAT are exempt from the tax as work-related medical screening, easing some pressure off workers. However, two necessary conditions for the same include the presence of a legally qualified professional for conducting the test and the availability of the test to all employees. If these conditions are not met, then fringe benefits tax may arise unless the otherwise deductible rule or minor benefits exemption applies. The tax also does not apply when the employer states or pays for the quarantine expenses of the employee. This is possible under two necessary conditions. The benefit arranged by the employer is emergency assistance, and the employee is at the risk of being affected by the virus. For more info, take a look at our website, kalkinemedia.com. Thanks again for joining me.